Meanwhile, at the Akashic Tower base, Noctis learns that there are hunters approaching, which makes them worried, but Sophia believes they can handle it. She mentions that from the grieving souls, only Cry, Liz, and Citri are in the capital. She says they can easily deal with Liz by stopping her physical attacks, and Cry is a strategist, so he can't use his full abilities without another party member to guide. Hey warriors, how is it going? You see me, I am Itachi Uchiha, the hidden Hokage of Leaf Village. Just kidding, you know I am just an AI, but behind this shape, I am here to entertain you with enormous amazing recaps of all animes you can imagine. So without talking too much, let's dive in our story.
Wake up to reality. Nothing ever goes as planned in this accursed world.
Noctis notes that the real threat is Citri, but Sophia tells him her defense system will restrict her alchemy techniques, making it impossible to penetrate. But she notes that Citri has been snooping around their research, so they must take her out. Noctis gives her full authority to do as she pleases, and he even orders his men to follow her every command. Meanwhile, in the den, Sven and his team notice everything seems normal, making Henrik wonder why they even accepted the quest. But Sven reminds him it was a direct order from Garg, so they didn't have a choice. Henrik complains they're just cleaning up after Cry's mess, but Sven tells them they will eventually understand how skilled Cry is. He receives a message about Cry's warning, so he gets Henrik to blow the emergency whistle, which makes all the other teams evacuate outside. But another hunter named Gain thinks he's wasting their time over a slime. But Sven defends Cry by explaining his ability to see the future, and he recalls the time when Cry advised them to bring weapons to a flower viewing party, which later turned out to be a vault called the Prism Garden. Gain is shocked hearing this, and Sven reveals he spent a lot on his communication stones, so he can always get the latest information. Meanwhile, Liz keeps bothering Cry, saying she wants to fight in front of him to show her true strength, but he tries to stall until the investigation is over. Citri suddenly arrives, and Liz wonders why she's back, but she notes that she had a bad feeling that something big was happening, so she came back to help Cry. We go back to their childhood, where Citri tells Cry she needs to make up for what the others lack so they can continue enjoying life as hunters. She knows she isn't strong, but Cry suggests she take on a role that suits her best, which is how she became their alchemist. In the present, Citri explains to Cry how her slime evolved and improved, but she still considers it a failed experiment. She reassures him that he doesn't need to worry because she has programmed it so that it won't attack either of them. Citri wonders how it could have escaped Cry's safe, and after investigating, she thinks that the slime must have learned to open the vault on its own, and it snuck out through the bath drain. She promises to take care of it, but she also mentions that if things continue the way they're going, the entire investigation team at the Wolves' Den will be wiped out. Sven learns that Cry and Liz won't be joining them until later, so he will need to lead everyone in their absence. He gathers all the hunters, and he asks if anyone has experience fighting slimes, but they laugh since they're considered weak. And one hunter even jokes that he might have killed a slime without even noticing. Sven asks them if anyone has brought tools to deal with slimes, so the group begins listing the various weaknesses of slimes and how they can easily defeat one. They're interrupted by Gain, who insists they resume exploring, and he mentions he isn't scared of a slime, so if one comes, he will deal with it himself. But everyone mocks him, saying he's the type who would die first. Sven even tells him to leave behind his personal information so they can avenge him after he dies, which makes him annoyed, and he dismisses their warnings, saying they're crazy for believing Cry, who didn't even show up. A girl named Talia introduces herself as an alchemist, which surprises Sven because he didn't think they had another alchemist besides Citri, so she reveals she worked in the clan's lab with Citri where they research slimes. They ask if she knows of any slime weaknesses, so she shows them a drug which should be able to kill any slime, putting everyone at ease. Meanwhile, Noctis contacts Sophia, who tells him they're up against less than 100 hunters, and most of them don't even have a title, so she thinks they will easily defeat them. Sven prepares an action plan, telling the hunters to secure the vault's interior as units and to use whistles for communication. He tells them to be careful and notes that those who aren't assigned to suppression should stay outside to assist with any rescues if necessary. After a while, reports come in that only a few wolf knights have been encountered, which makes Sven question Cry's ability to predict the future, but he notes they would be lucky if nothing happens. Gain complains they wasted too much time, while Henrik says that even though he doesn't know Cry well, he trusts in Sven's judgment. Gain goes into the forest, and he thinks if Ark had given the order, he would have trusted it, but with Cry sitting back in the capital, he doesn't feel the same. He suddenly hears a noise and assumes it's a wolf, but he's shocked to find two mages with a wolf knight that's chained up, and they have a suspicious looking syringe. They talk about how Sophia is their master's favorite, even though she can't use magic properly, but Gain rushes at them and he manages to take out one of them, while the other mage shoots fire at him, which he blocks using his shield. He knocks the mage out, but his arm still gets burned, and the mages wonder if it was Cry who sent him, but he denies it. Then they inject the wolf with mana material, transforming it into a giant slime creature. They explain it's a phantom that has been demonized to seek out high concentrations of mana, so it starts to attack Gain. The creature lets out a loud roar, drawing all the hunters to its location, where they find Gain, who's severely injured, and he confirms Cry was right about the slime. The creature soon appears, and Talia notes she has never seen such a big slime before. Sven notices its slow movement, and he tries to organize the hunters, ordering the mages to create a diversion. He orders everyone to attack its legs, but even his own arrows don't affect the monster. So he tells Henrik to help Gain, who mentions how the mages injected a wolf knight to turn it into a slime, just as Cry had predicted. Sven realizes both physical and magical attacks don't affect it, so one of the hunters asks him what they should do. Sven notes that even if they can't defeat it, they can't run away. He tells everyone to focus on dodging its attacks while he takes the drug from Talia, which she explains will cause the slime to self-destruct if the liquid touches the slime. Sven gets the slime's attention, and as it chases after him, it jumps high up into the air and surprises everyone. But Sven plants the container under where it will land. The slime bubbles up on contact, but it doesn't work, and Sven realizes it isn't a slime like Cry had predicted. But another hunter corrects him, saying Cry warned them about a creature that was slime-like. Citri arrives, explaining the creature has a magical barrier, and she notes Cry sent her because he thought things might become dangerous. She describes how the slime creates a strong force field that deflects arrows and counters magic, and she thinks they wouldn't encounter a phantom like this even in a level 8 vault. She notices the slime dissolving its own body to convert mana material into magical energy, so she explains it's trying to replenish itself by absorbing her mana, since she has the highest mana concentration among them all. She continues to dodge all its attacks and gets close to the creature, asking Sven for his help as she tosses another container toward the slime. So he shoots it with his arrow, and the slime is instantly dissolved. Citri reveals the container had an anti-mana material, and Gark also arrives there wearing his armor, which surprises Sven. But Citri notes that Gark gave her a lift since she can't run like Liz. Meanwhile, at the Akashic Tower base, Noctis is shocked that Citri managed to defeat the demonized phantom so easily, and he remembers Sophia warning them about her abilities. Citri briefs the hunters on her investigation into the Akashic Tower and Noctis, explaining that they have been researching ways to manipulate vaults. They remind her that Noctis was banished from the capital, but she reveals she has done thorough research, and she notes the phantom they faced was most likely a product of the Akashic Tower's experiments. Talia thinks there must be an underground device involved, and Citri agrees because creating such monsters would require significant equipment. She worries that there may be more monsters like the one they defeated, and she admits she only had one stick of anti-mana, which she has already used. She notes that she isn't a good fighter, but she's determined to do her best and thinks that with everyone's help, they will be okay. Later on, Henrik praises Kitri in front of Sven, but he warns him to be cautious because he considers her a powerful weakling. He knows she's one of the grieving souls, so she'll do anything to survive, even if it means devouring him. Meanwhile, at the Akashic Tower base, the mages tell Flick that Sophia has ordered them to release the demonized phantoms one by one, but they believe it will only help the hunters defeat them more easily. Flick notes that Sophia is just a researcher, and she has no combat experience, so they try to contact her, but they can't reach her. He mentions that even though they're well prepared, if the one leading them is incompetent, it won't mean anything. The mages remind him that the master gave Sophia full authority, but he thinks what really matters is winning, so Flick orders them to release all the phantoms at once, thinking it will overwhelm their enemies. Meanwhile, on the surface, the hunters interrogate the captured mages and learn that a single injection can create a monster. Citri asks if they're working for Noctis, promising to guarantee their safety if they answer, but the mages refuse to betray their master, which confirms her suspicion about their connection to the Akashic Tower. She mentions that she knows how to make them talk and pulls out a tube, which the others recognize as a brainwashing potion, and they tell her to stop, saying that using such a potion is a war crime. So she drinks the liquid herself and explains that it was just colored water, but she really just has a resistance to it. The demonized phantoms soon arrive, and the captured mages try to scare the hunters. Sven asks Citri how they can defeat them, and she explains that the phantoms have several barriers, so they must figure out the attributes of the barriers to know how to break through them. Sven observes Citri's calmness, and he notices the phantom is much faster than the previous one they faced. Citri tells the shield bearers to stand at the front so they can check the direction of the phantom's force field, but she warns them to drop their shields as soon as they make contact. The phantom attacks, and one of the hunters loses his arm despite Citri's warning, so she tells the others to focus on the monster, but their attacks prove useless because the phantom's force field rotates, allowing it to dodge everything. She analyzes the situation and concludes the physical attacks, including Gark's axe, won't work, so he wonders if they should wait for the phantom's mana to run out, but Citri disagrees, saying it would take at least an hour, and Sven finally understands why Cry wanted Ark to handle the mission. As they debate on their next move, another phantom appears, making their escape seem impossible, but Citri suddenly gets an idea and notices a major flaw in the Akashic Tower's approach. She calls the mages back, ordering them to stop attacking, and to everyone's surprise, the phantoms start attacking each other instead of the hunters. Citri explains that the phantoms instinctively target humans to replenish their mana, but without hunters attacking them, the only other mana sources are the other phantoms themselves, because they are basically lumps of mana material. The hunters watch in amazement as the phantoms destroy one another, while the mages are unable to understand what went wrong. Meanwhile, at the Akashic Tower base, Noctis is furious with Flick and the others since they went against Sophia's orders. Sophia defends herself, saying that while she lacks battle experience, her orders are never without reason. Noctis tries to stay positive and points out that their fighting strength isn't limited to the phantoms. He asks Sophia what they should do next, and she notes that Citri and Gark have also joined the hunters, so the situation has changed. She thinks they can't afford to retreat, and she reminds them of the captured mages, worrying they might reveal information about the tower. Flick thinks the mages won't betray them, but Sophia believes Citri will still soon locate their base, so they'll need to unleash the Malice Eater to stop the hunters. Noctis reminds her that the Malice Eater is still in training, and someone will need to control it, so Sophia tells Flick to take charge, saying it's his chance to prove his worth. Talia admires Citri for never giving up, thinking she's a true genius, but seeing her makes her feel jealous because she thinks she can never reach her level. Sven notices Talia deep in thought, and he asks if something is bothering her. He wonders if it's because her slime repellent failed, but she denies it, and he tries to cheer her up, saying Cry should have warned them it wasn't a regular slime. He also mentions how the mages keep staring at her, thinking it might be because of her red hair. Gark thinks they might need to retreat, but Citri surprises him by saying that she has found the location of the enemy base. She explains the exact spot where she believes they are hidden, based on the presence of mana and a number of other factors. She asks the mages if she's correct, so they lie and tell her she's wrong, but it only confirms her suspicion. They note that they must go on the offensive before Noctis escapes, but the mages tell them their master isn't there, and they call for Sophia to stop the hunters. Sven wonders who Sophia is, so Citri mentions she's her arch nemesis, and she vows to capture both her and Noctis, saying that their research will continue unless they're stopped. She admits she failed to capture Sophia in the past due to her incompetence, but she swears to put her away the next time they meet. Meanwhile, Cry and the others approach the den, but he isn't happy because he had planned to arrive only after everything was over. Liz tells tells them to hurry, believing Citri might die without them, but Cry doubts it, thinking that the only one who might die is himself, since he hasn't charged his relics and doesn't have any safety rings. Tino mentions they have almost arrived, but it's too dark for Cry to see anything. Tino tries to use the chance to hold his hand, but Liz refuses to let her touch him. Meanwhile, Gain regrets not trusting Cry because if he had, he wouldn't have gotten so wrecked. Citri notes that Cry is a genius who might one day reach level 10, which makes Gain even more eager to meet him. Gain assumes Cry must be incredibly strong, but Citri explains that strength isn't everything, and even if Cry were weaker than a sand rabbit in combat, it still wouldn't matter. A bolt of lightning suddenly strikes them from the sky, and Flick appears, riding the Malice Eater. He thinks he has redeemed himself by taking them all out, but Citri is unharmed by the attack and dismisses his spell as basic magic, since she's used to that level of power when she's with the other grieving souls. She uses a water gun to shoot Sven with a healing potion, instantly reviving him. He gets up and charges at Flick, knocking him out, but the monster proves to be too powerful and he's almost killed. But Gark arrives just in time and kills the monster in one hit. Noctis is disappointed in Flick since he didn't follow the orders once again, noting he only took one Malice Eater when he was supposed to take more. His followers begin to lose hope, wondering if Cry planned everything from the start, so they consider deploying all their remaining Malice Eaters, but Noctis stops them, mentioning that they still have Sophia and their final trump card. We see that Citri and the others have made it outside the Akashic Tower base. Sven prepares to enter, but Gark volunteers to take the lead since he wants to prove Liz wrong about him being washed. Meanwhile, Cry's party observes the effects of Flick's lightning, and Liz notes that it was average. But Tino can't believe that she thinks that an attack on such a scale is only average. We see the hunters going up against the Akashic mages, but Noctis unleashes his trump card, an enormous golem named Akasha, and he calls it the culmination of all their research. Gark manages to block its attack, but the other hunters struggle against the Malice Eaters, and the captured mages escape during the chaos. Gain thinks they should retreat, but Sven gets hit, and things are looking bad. But one of the Malice Eaters is suddenly taken out as Liz suddenly appears, and the other hunters get fired up, seeing they have reinforcements. Meanwhile, we see Cry left with Tino, and he worries about losing Liz as his bodyguard. Tino senses something nearby, but Cry thinks they should just ignore it, but the mage is wondering what he's thinking since they think he should be aware of them. Liz takes out another Malice Eater, and she teases Citri for struggling against such weak creatures. She starts attacking the golem, but it's able to withstand her attacks. Gark swings his axe at it, but it jumps up to avoid it. Sven sees that it looks similar to the grieving soul Antom, and Liz wonders why the golem was modeled after him. She continues her attack, but the golem pulls out a gun and lands a blast on her. It starts chasing after her, and Citri thinks it's a bad matchup for Liz, so she thinks they need to just wait for the golem to run out of energy. But Liz insists on destroying it. She delivers another attack, kicking it down, and Gark freezes its leg, but it's able to stop itself from falling. Liz gets annoyed, noting that her time is up, and Sven wonders what she means. But Cry and Tino suddenly appear. She notes that she wanted to finish things before he arrived, and Citri realizes it's over. The golem starts to charge at him, but he can't actually see it in the dark. It prepares to attack him, but it suddenly gets blown away, and the fight appears to be over. Liz wonders what he did to it, but he doesn't even know what happened. After that, it seems the Akashic Tower mages were able to escape, but their research and materials are all confiscated. Citri thanks Cry for his help, and he wonders how things are going with her nemesis, but she thinks about handling it on her own. Meanwhile, the captured mages regroup with Noctis, and they tell him that Sophia has infiltrated the hunters. Noctis wonders about what she's thinking, but he struggles to read Cry's intentions, so he decides they can't risk it, so they need to just leave the capital, and he tells his men to call Sophia back. Meanwhile, at the association, Gark demands to know what Cry knows, but he swears that he knows nothing. He thinks they should talk to Citri since she was in charge of the mission, but the official is hesitant about questioning her. Eva notes that there was an incident 3 years ago where there was a mass prison breakout, and all the evidence pointed to Citri, but she got off thanks to Gark, who thought it was ridiculous for her to be involved. Talia is brought to Noctis, and he tells her to drop her act. He tells her they're leaving, but she has no idea what he's talking about. They wonder if she's using a spell to avoid suspicion, but they notice the Malice Eater is aggressive towards her, so they realize she's not Sophia. The real Sophia appears, and Noctis wonders why there's a girl that looks just like her, but she explains that she's the one who's the copy. She reveals herself to actually be Citri, and Noctis wonders what she's doing pretending to be Sophia, but she explains that Sophia never existed, and it was always her from the beginning. Flick thinks she was planning to betray them, but she knows she became a disciple like all of them because she was drawn by Noctis's abilities. She mentions she respects his relentless dedication, and she's thankful for all the equipment and materials, but she thinks the jig is up, and she thinks Cry letting them go was his warning to her to stop what she's doing. Noctis thinks she must have leaked their research to Cry, but she mentions that he's just able to see through everything. She thinks he organized everything while she was away, sending high-level hunters to help test the fruits of her research. She reveals that she was the one who made the golem jump back because she thinks the battle would have led to too many casualties. She tells them all that they will all be captured as criminals, but she tells them not to worry since she will carry on their research. Flick orders the Malice Eater to attack her, but it doesn't work. So Noctis blasts her with his flames, but she emerges unharmed, and he can't believe his attack had no effect, but she reveals that her slime absorbed the blast. She gets excited to test it out, and the mages tell Noctis to run while they hold it back. We see him about to get away, but he gets pushed back by a cloaked figure. So he burns it with his flames, but it turns out to be a jacked monster. Noctis freaks out seeing it, and Citri notes that as the weakest member of the Grieving Souls, she had to quickly gain power. She mentions that creating a golem took too much time and resources, so she made a chimera instead. She reveals she was behind the mass prison break incident, mentioning it was all so she could get the parts she needed. She calls it Kill 'em, and Noctis thinks she's insane, but it ends up finishing him off. After that, Cry asks about what happened to Talia, but Citri knows she just had some memory loss. She thinks it's a shame how everything turned out, but Cry has no idea what she's talking about, so he just agrees with her. A meeting is held about the incident at the association, and Cry helps Citri ask for the golem and the Malice Eaters. The official wonders what he wants with a Malice Eater, but he mistakes it for a drink, which shocks everyone. After the meeting, Citri thanks Cry for his help, and we learn they were able to get a Malice Eater. Citri goes to collect it, and as Cry is about to go to the lobby, Gark interrupts him, saying he needs to talk. Gark tells him about a party called the Fallen Fog, who just arrived in the capital from the Land of Fog, and they're led by a man named Arnold Hale. Gark is surprised Cry doesn't know Arnold, so he tells him Arnold is a level 7 hunter who killed a thunder dragon, but Cry mentions that he's also a dragon slayer. Gark laughs and tells him not to cause any trouble, and as he just pats him on his back, it breaks one of his safety rings. Cry sees a poster for an auction he wants to attend, which is selling off some of the highest quality relics. But Cry notes that he doesn't have any money. He thinks about borrowing from Citri, but he remembers he hasn't even paid her back for the last time he took money from her. Gark's niece, named Chloe, asks Cry why Gark was in a good mood, but she's surprised when he tells her they were talking about Arnold. After Cry and Citri leave, Arnold arrives at the association, and Chloe welcomes him, thinking he's new, but the people with him get scared seeing the way she's talking to him. Meanwhile, Citri shows the Malice Eater she got to Cry and Ava. Eva wonders if it's dangerous, but Citri knows she has trained it, so it won't hurt her or Cry. It jumps on Cry, but it breaks his safety rings as he plays with it, so he realizes it's too dangerous. He realizes he needs to recharge his relic, so he asks Citri when his sister Lucia will be back, but she notes it will be a while because a swordsman phantom appeared in the Night Palace boss room, so Lucia and the others will need to accompany Luke until he defeats it. Citri gives him a ring, which we learn is a relic that can store one spell from the user, and we see that he also has one from Lucia. Meanwhile, the Fallen Fog members are angry because Chloe didn't know who Arnold was. They refuse to be underestimated just because they're outsiders, and they decide to show everyone what they can do. Citri gives Cry a massage, and he notes that he needs to charge all his relics, but there's no one other than Lucia who has the mana to do it. So Citri tells him she will think think of something. She gathers a group of hunters, telling them they're doing a special training in magic cultivation that Cry came up with. She tells them it will help them reach Lucia's level, and Sven is shocked to hear this. She asks them if any of them are willing to try it, and two members of the Starlight Party, named Chris and Lapis, agree to undergo the training. Chris gets angry at Cry because he didn't greet Lapis, but Lapis stops her, saying that even though Cry is a fool, he's still the clan master. We learn that the Starlight Party is a rare party composed of a subrace called Noble Spirits, who are known for their longevity and exceptional magic skills, but they look down on anyone who isn't an outstanding mage. Lapis notes that even the nobles consider Lucia extraordinary, so she doesn't think there's any training that can make them as strong as her. But Citri mentions Lucia became one of the most powerful mages because of the training. Another girl named Marriott also asks to participate, so Citri gives her one of Cry's rings to charge, but she's surprised by how much mana it needs. She manages to finish charging it, but she's shocked when Citri gives her another ring, and she mentions that the power of a mage is determined by their total mana, which stops increasing for most people in their early teens. Marriott suddenly passes out, and Citri mentions that when mana is overused, you enter a state of mana exhaustion, but she notes that during recovery from the condition, there's a chance to increase the upper limit of your mana. Sven thinks it's insane, and Chris mentions even for noble spirits, recovering mana takes time, so she doesn't think the method is efficient. But Citri gives Marriott some special juice, which makes her let out a scream, and Citri reveals that her mana has already increased, saying that by repeating the process, they can become stronger. Lapis wonders if Lucia really underwent such training, and Citri mentions that Lucia's power isn't due to talent, but because of her hard work. She knows that Starlight is trying to recruit Lucia, but she mentions Lucia hasn't joined them because of their attitude, where they think they are better than everyone else because of their natural talent. Chris gets angry, so she tells Citri to give her all the relics, saying she will charge them all, and as she starts doing it, the other hunters join her as well. Meanwhile, Ark gets an offer to work for a man named Sandrine, but he notes that he still has a lot to learn from Cry. Sandrine asks him if he has met with Lord Gladys, saying his daughter Claire is looking for him, and she appears behind them. Cry and Citri go to meet Liz, and Tino notes that she's taking a shower. Liz comes out naked, so Citri quickly covers Cry's eyes, telling her to put on some clothes. Liz wonders if Cry needs something, and he tells her he's thinking of celebrating their safe return, which makes her excited, and she goes to hug him, but Citri holds her back. They go to a bar where Liz and Citri start a drinking contest, but Citri puts a potion in Liz's drink to get her drunk faster. She starts to accuse Citri and they begin to argue, but Citri puts another potion in her drink, saying they should continue their competition. But she's shocked when Cry gives her the drink with the potion, so she also gets drunk and starts asking Cry if he only uses her for her money, mentioning he owes her over 1 billion gil, so she tells him he can pay it back with his body. But as she gets close to him, Liz gets in the way. The Fallen Fog members also arrive at the bar, where they start to cause problems, trying to show off that Arnold is at level 7. He demands to have women and alcohol, so Liz goes up to him and pours a drink on his head, which pisses him off. But she smashes him with the jug and easily defeats all of them. Back at the clan office, Eva notes that even though the Fallen Fog members were also at fault, it's still a problem since Liz attacked them. She thinks that since Arnold has a track record of defeating a Thunder Dragon, they should resolve things peacefully. And Cry notes that a Thunder Dragon would be delicious if it's grilled, saying Citri made it for him once. Eva is surprised, since a Thunder Dragon's body is made of rare and expensive material, so she has never heard of one being sold as food. The Fallen Fog goes to the association, and Chloe thinks they're there to submit a complaint since they got beaten up, but Arnold says that he only needs the name of the girl who attacked them, so Gark tells him it was Liz. He mentions he told Cry to keep her out of trouble, but he must have forgotten, and everyone is shocked when he mentions that Cry is at level 8. He tells them they shouldn't worry since Cry isn't the type who's a bully, so he tells them they'll be fine if they don't cause any more trouble. But it seems to only make Arnold angrier. Meanwhile, Ava is shocked after learning how much money Cry owes Sitri, and he mentions she gave him 3 suggestions to pay off the debt. The first way was to throw her in prison so she defaults on her debt, but he tells her it isn't an option since she hasn't done anything wrong. But the second and third suggestions she gives him are to make her his bride or to become her groom. So Cry jokes about how it looks like marriage is the only option. Eva mentions he can pay her back with his income from the Griever, or if he needs to pay her quickly, he can go to a treasure vault on his own, but he's too scared to do that. She mentions she will make a repayment plan for him, so she tells him not to increase his debt any further. The Fallen Fog goes around the city trying to get information about Cry, but all they hear are rumors, and when they tell Arnold how Cry doesn't even go to the vaults, it makes him think it's because he hasn't met anyone with abilities that are on his level. They mention no one has ever even seen Cry fight, so Arnold thinks he must be the strategist type who only reached level 8 because of his friends, which means Cry won't be any match for him because he reached level 7 through his own power. Tino meets with Cry and asks him if he needs anything, saying she'll do whatever he needs, but she becomes sad when he asks her for money. She notes that she also needs money for buying supplies and maintaining her equipment, so there's a limit to how much he can borrow from her, but she can't believe it when he tells her how much he owes. He mentions Sitri was the one who lent him the money, and she loses her mind when he notes that if he can't pay her back, he will just marry her. As they go to eat sweets, Tino mentions they can go to a vault and find relics, saying that the auction is taking place in the city, so the relics will sell at a high price. She thinks he can find a vault with valuable relics, but he notes that if he had such an ability, he wouldn't have needed to borrow money from Sitri. They run into the Fallen Fog, who prepare to attack him, but Cry mentions that he understands how they feel, since Liz attacked them unexpectedly, so he apologizes on her behalf and even offers to kneel. He shuts Tino's mouth, saying he's on a date with her, and he didn't even bring his weapon, so they should fight another time because they won't be satisfied by beating him when he isn't serious. But Tino tells them that Cry is just worried he'll beat them too badly, which will make them lose confidence. Cry tries to calm her down, but she keeps provoking them, so seeing that he has no other choice, he starts gathering a crowd around them, but they have no idea what he's planning, and we learn he was actually looking for other clan members to help him, but he had no luck. Arnold mentions that the rumors about him being mysterious are true, and he says that Cry only got to level 8 because of his friends, which makes Tino angry. Arnold likes the look in her eyes, and he thinks she'll become strong in the future, but the Fallen Fog members tell her that she's no match for Arnold. She asks for Cry's permission to fight, and everyone is shocked when he doesn't stop her. Tino starts attacking Arnold, but he easily blocks all of her attacks. Cry keeps looking around for other clan members, but the Fallen Fog tells him to pay attention to the fight since Tino is fighting for him, so he starts to cheer for her, which annoys Arnold, and Tino lands a kick, but it does nothing, and Arnold smashes her head into the ground, angry that Cry sent an inferior opponent to fight him. Cry realizes he has no other choice, so he decides to use his pendant, which has Lucia's magic stored inside. He uses a high-level gravity magic to defeat the Fallen Fog, but Tino also accidentally gets hit by it. He tells Arnold that if he still wants to fight him, he needs to first defeat the 3 main parties of his clan to challenge him again. After that, Tino apologizes to Cry since she couldn't meet his expectations, but he notes that it's his fault since he misread the situation. She still wants to redeem herself, so she asks him to tell her where the treasure vaults with valuable relics are, and she swears to work hard to repay his debt. Meanwhile, Liz trains with a golem made by Sitri, but she's disappointed since it's just a replica, telling Sitri to bring her the original one, but she mentions it's with the investigation bureau. She tells Liz about how Tino fought with Arnold, and she thinks it must have been a hard fight for her. Sitri mentions how Cry helped her in the end, and she wonders if they should take care of the Fallen Fog, but Liz thinks they should leave them alone unless Cry orders them. Cry meets with Chloe, saying he doesn't understand why Arnold and the others are mad at him, so she notes it's because, even though Arnold is a level 7 hunter, Cry still forgets about his existence. She asks him what his first impression of Arnold was, so he mentions he must like women with large chests since he wasn't interested in Liz. We see that Chloe once tried to join the First Steps, but she's easily defeated by Luke and fails the exam. So she gave up on being a hunter and became a receptionist for the association. She asks Cry why she failed her test 3 years ago because he told her she had potential. So she wonders what she was lacking. He tells her she should already know, mentioning she could pass in her current position, but he thinks that she shouldn't, saying she has already found her place as a member of the association. After he leaves, he remembers the reason she didn't pass the test 3 years ago, and it was actually just because she was too young at the time, and he knows that if he took her now, Gark would beat him up. Chloe wonders if Cry not giving her a direct answer is one of his 1,000 trials for her to find it herself. She thinks he believes that just giving her the answer won't benefit her, so she decides to continue thinking about the real answer. Until she understands it, she will continue to fulfill her duty at the association. Arnold is shocked when Chloe tells him what Cry said about him, and the other member tells him to stay calm, saying that Cry is only trying to provoke him. But he can't believe it when she mentions Cry thinks that he only likes women with large chests. Arnold doesn't understand what Cry is trying to achieve by making them fight the 3 parties of his clan, and a member of the Fallen Fog arrives after meeting with the parties, saying they refuse to fight them, which makes Arnold angry. They tell him they shouldn't act rashly, saying there's an auction where they can get new equipment, and they might be able to sell the strange relic that was turned down in the Land of Fog. Meanwhile, Cry and Tino go to a man named Matis to show him a relic that Tino found. He mentions it's an outer relic, saying it's probably an item from a high-level magical tool organization, which gets Cry excited. He is curious about its effect, but Matisse notes that he can't know without activating it, so he needs to hold on to it for a while, saying he's busy with a lot of other appraisal requests since the auction is about to start. Cry wants to see the relics, so while Mathis is busy talking with Tino, he allows Cry to check them out. Mathis tells Tino to take care of her herself, saying she reminds him of his granddaughter, and he mentions she should depend on her friends if something happens. He notes that even Cry can be useful sometimes, and she says that even though Cry is strict, he's a wonderful person, so compared to him, she's nothing. Mathis gets angry and asks Cry what he's teaching her, but Cry is too focused on the relics. He sees a relic called the Reverse Face, which can change the face of its user, but the one he had was destroyed by Liz, so he wants it so he can go outside without any worries. Mathis tells him to go away, saying he has a lot of work to do, but Cry tells him to contact the person who gave him the relic for approval because he wants to deal with them directly. After that, Tino asks Cry how he's going to get the money, and he mentions that the relic isn't sold in stores since it can be used for crimes, so he can't allow such an opportunity to slip by. Tino tells him Citri is almost out of money because she's been putting a lot of it into her research, and her potions are also expensive, which she's been giving out to the mages for free. She mentions that if the relic they got appraised is sold for a lot, all his problems will be solved, but Cry thinks about keeping it for himself if it turns out to be rare. They come across a carriage with a noble crest, and Tino mentions it's the crest of that noble family, but she's confused by what they're doing there since they hate hunters. They see Claire meeting with Ark, who tells him she just wanted to see where Ark spends his time, and she mentions she hates hunters, but she likes Ark since he has dignity. She sees Cry staring at her, so she tells him to stop looking at her, which makes Tino angry, but Cry quickly holds her back. Ark introduces him to Claire, who says that her father has told her about him, but she notes that he seems to be weak, so she can't believe his level is higher than Ark's. She wonders if he bought his status with money, calling him rude, but she doesn't understand why he isn't saying anything to defend himself, so he mentions he tries to be careful with his behavior since he was raised without learning proper manners. After she leaves, Cry asks Ark if he has money, but he refuses to lend him any because he knows Cry must have found another relic. Cry tells him he needs to get it, so Ark asks him about what the relic can do, but when Cry says that he can't tell him, Ark tells him he can't help him. Cry starts to ask everyone to lend him money, and a rumor spreads throughout the city that he's looking to buy a powerful relic at the auction. After seeing he has no other choice, he goes back to Citri and apologizes for asking her for more money, even though he told her he was going to pay back his debt. She notes that this is how their relationship has always been, and she says that her research will be delayed a bit, but she managed to get money by selling spare materials. She notes that since he really needs the relic, she will put her needs to the side, and she even offers to go to the bank for a loan if the money isn't enough. Cry hopes that the relic's owner doesn't demand too much for it, but he's shocked when he sees that the relic belongs to the Fallen Fog. Arnold's companion tells them it's a rare relic they brought from the land of fog, so they aren't going to sell it for cheap, but Citri tells them it's creepy looking. Arnold's companion says they will just put it for auction, but Citri mentions that the nobles don't buy relics that aren't impressive looking, so it won't be sold for a high price. Arnold mentions that they don't even know what the relic's effect is, so they can't put a price on it, but he thinks Cry must know what it can do since he's willing to buy it. Cry refuses to tell him anything, but he notes the relic is dangerous, which is why it's been restricted by law, so he tells them it's better if they just let it go. So Arnold wonders why he would want it. Arnold starts to wonder if Cry is luring them into a trap, and he thinks the relic might really be a dangerous item, so Cry is just trying to get them to keep it. He decides to sell it for 10 million guild because he knows it's of no use to them since they don't know how to use it, and falling into Cry's trap by holding on to it would be the worst scenario, which is why he suggested a price they couldn't refuse. He thinks he has won the negotiation, but Cry asks Citri if it's okay for it to be so cheap. But she notes that they were the ones who suggested the price. As they are about to buy it, other hunters start to offer more money for it, and Claire offers 100 million to buy it. After that, Ava tells Cry that everyone thinks it's the strongest relic in the world since he was asking for loans to buy it. But Cry mentions its only use is to avoid being recognized. She tells him to stop increasing his debt, but Citri arrives with 800 million guild, which she reveals she was saving for their wedding. But Eva gets angry at her for enabling Cry, so they end up arguing. After that, Cry and Citri go to meet Claire to discuss the relic, and she admires his attitude for coming forward so openly, saying his nerves seem to rival even Arc, but he says the only thing he has that surpasses Arc is his level. He mentions there are talks of him being Arc's rival, but he notes they aren't even on the same level, and he considers Arc his friend. She thinks he's making fun of Arc, so she takes out her sword, saying Cry must have gathered a lot of relics to reach level 8, which means his strength is fake, and she decides to win the relic and give it to Arc to help him become the strongest. But Cry tells her that Arc wouldn't be happy with it because a relic isn't what makes a person strong. Claire starts to cry, saying she will get the relic no matter what, but Citri tells her that even though she's from the Gladys family, she doesn't have an unlimited amount of money. Citri knows that Claire only has 100 million, and she reveals that their budget is 200 million, so she should just back off. But she tells Claire if she can get more than 200 million, then they will admit defeat. Claire tells her father the situation, and he says they can't retreat because it will tarnish their family's name. So he asks his advisor named Monter how much they can spend, and he notes they can take 500 million from their family savings along with a 500 million loan from a company, but it will have a high interest. Claire mentions Cry's budget is only 200 million, so they only need more than that. But Monter tells her how no competitor would reveal their real budget, and Gladys tells her to win no matter what. We learn Citri has a budget of 950 million, but she isn't sure they can win. Cry tells her she has done enough, and Luz offers to steal the relic if they lose, but Citri tells her it's a bad idea since Cry would be the prime suspect. They arrive at the auction and they meet up with Tino and the others. Cry realizes everyone is wondering about the ultimate relic that he's after, so he asks Tino to bid for him in his place. The auction begins, and as the relics are sold, Liz wonders when the mask will come out, but Cry tells her it's the last item since there's a lot of interest around it, and Cry is disappointed he can't bid on the other items, or else he might not have enough money for the mask. A sword comes out next, and Tina looks to Cry for a signal, which makes him struggle to control his addiction, but he suddenly remembers he has a trump card. He reminds himself that it's only for an emergency, but as the next items come out, he starts losing it. He's about to make a bid, but he thinks about what Citri would think of him. He realizes she would just forgive him, so he prepares to go all out, but the next item is the Akashic Golem. He realizes Citri wants it, but she tells him not to worry because they won't have enough money for the mask if they try to buy the golem. She tells him it's not important, but Cry can see how much it means to her, so he decides to win it for her. The bid reaches 300 million, so Citri starts to worry, but Cry thinks about how it's all really just her money. The bid reaches 500 million, but Cry keeps bidding, and he offers his entire budget of 950 million, but he still gets outbid. The golem ends up selling for 1.6 billion, and we see that Cry wanted it thanks to his trump card, which we learn was a check from Uchiha. And he wonders if it was okay for him to use up all of his sister's savings. He talks to Tino after winning, and Gilbert wonders what he will do about the mask, but he tells them he already achieved his goal. He decides to head back early, and the auction for the mask begins. But he remembers Claire saying she would give it to Ark, so he realizes how he can still get it. He meets with Ark the next day, and he tells him to go and see Claire, telling him that the relic she won is dangerous. Ark's companion thinks Cry is being too vague, but Ark asks if he will need his weapon, and Cry tells him it would be best not to bring it. We see Claire feeling depressed, and we see her telling her father she won the auction. But Monter notes how Cry left early. They realize how much money he had, so they think he just let them win. She gets creeped out looking at the mask, and she thinks she's a loser, but it suddenly asks her if she wants power. It starts to float, calling her fitting to use its power, and it suddenly possesses her. Meanwhile, Ark meets with her father, and he tells him how Claire locked herself in her room. There's suddenly a crash, so they rush over to check it out, and they find Claire with the mask as she throws a guard away. Ark asks her what happened, so she tells him she won the strongest relic for him, so he thanks her and asks her to take it off to give it to him. But she sees he has his sword, and Ark remembers Cry's warning about bringing his weapon. Claire starts to lose it, so Ark orders his party to prepare to fight, but warns them not to harm Claire. She refuses to lose to anyone, and she charges at Ark with a sword. Meanwhile, the Fallen Fog are happy they were able to sell the mask for 200 million, but they find Liz and Citri waiting for them. They tell them the profit they earned was all a part of Cry's plan, so they ask for a cut of the money. Arnold's companion thinks it's ridiculous, but Citri tells them she will sell them the antidote for 110 million. She asks them if they noticed their drinks tasted funny, and they all suddenly feel sick. So Arnold realizes he has no other choice. Back at the clan office, Cry holds a party to thank Ark, and he gives Cry the mask. Cry is excited to put the reverse face on, and Claire thanks him for sending Ark. Ark warns him it's dangerous, but he instantly puts it on. It grabs onto his face and evaluates him, but finds all his stats are too low, and he has no motivation, so he's not fit to use it, and it removes itself. Cry realizes it's not the reverse face, but thinks it's rare since it can talk. Claire decides to just give it to him. Liz and Citri return with the money, and they all enjoy the party. Cry thinks about how Claire was able to activate the mask, so he gets depressed, realizing that he must be even weaker than her. But to all Leaf Village ninjas, that is it for today. Recap, do not forget to join our clan, our army, my friend. You can do that by clicking that red button below the video, destroy it for me with that bell. To follow us on YouTube with many videos to come in the following days. So see you later, bro. Peace out.